Legislature is back in session. At this time, I'm going to recognize Speaker Frank Blas Jr. Please proceed, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. Carlson and Mr. Byrne. Thank you for being here tonight. I just want to get straight to it. Mr. Byrne, earlier there was a presentation of, I guess, the funding for the mold mitigation as well as the fencing. And can you repeat again how much each of those projects are supposed to cost?
Yeah. My recollection is getting a little fuzzy, but it was like 8 million and 7 million.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
8 million and 7 million to my recollection.
So 8 million and 7 million, $15 million.
It's between 14 and 15 million dollars.
Where's the funding source for that?
It's in the appropriation that was made for it.
Pardon me?
It's in the appropriation that was made for it.
It was an appropriation that was made for it. So there was an appropriation that was made. And Mr. Paul, you basically said that that was going to be the offset for the $21 million that was taken back in 2022.
What was going to be the offset, sir?
The mold mitigation,
yeah, there was mold mitigation, fencing, that I did ask Mr. Byrne if we could have that money back, and he said no, they're already proceeding with the contracts. And then we found out the contracts were being protested.
Okay, so
we never got the money back.
That was $21 million that you used, that was used by GDOE to make the payments for the
for ARP?
For the pay raises as well as the pay incentive.
No.
Okay? It was $21 million that was used. That's $15 million a year. There's a $6 million delta.
Mr. Speaker, there's some other expenses charged against that appropriation.
Such as?
There's, I think, somewhere between 2 to 3 million for the National Guard when they were under state control to provide the protective services after the typhoon. And I think there was 2 million that went to Simon Sanchez. So,
yeah, I understand. What I know about it is there was 6 million used for the National Guard, 3 million was for the fencing, and then 11 million was for the mold mitigation.
You just finished giving me 8 and 7. Now you're giving me 11 and 3.
Well, it comes
that's what I had heard.
Together they were 14 million.
Yeah.
So, and then
together they were $14 million. Yeah. But one is 11 and 3, and the other one's 8 and 7. Now you know why we're confused. Mr. Guerrero, can you please tell me what, since 2020, what has been the ask of GDOE for their budget? Oh, before you get to that, there was this morning, Dr. Swanson had stated that when they finished up their budget and everything, they had provided it to the executive branch, to the governor's office. What did the governor's office do with that information?
Well, Dr. Swanson didn't provide it to me, so I can't answer that question.
Dr. Swanson, who did you provide it to?
OFB. We submitted it to OFB.
OFB and governor's office are two different entities. This morning, you made the statement was made that you gave it to the governor's office.
And I think we submitted it to BBMR.
Mr. Carlson? You say that, you're true. Turn it on. There you go.
Thank you, Speaker Blas. BBMR prepares the governor's executive budget request for submission to the legislature, and we did so on January 31st. We do not use any information from the reserve agencies in the preparation of our budget. Any budget for judiciary, this branch, mayor's council, DOE, UOG, GCC, entities that come here directly to present their budget requests to you, we have and we contain their estimated budgets in the reserve. We do not have any prior information that we would utilize to incorporate in the EBR.
Okay, so the question was, did you receive?
Prior to the EBR, no.
Can you turn on the mic so it can be?
I think somebody's muting me unnecessarily, sir, because
Yeah, it's called your finger.
I
You
didn't
turned it
turn
off.
the button on.
Yes, you did. Anyways, go ahead.
No, we didn't receive anything prior, and I do not recall anything that was received afterwards, because when we send you something and it's contained in the reserves, there's a number, and that number includes DOE, UOG, and I believe GCC, as well as the rest of the Reserve Department agencies.
Okay. So we didn't get, okay, it's 11 and 4. Yes, we did. We didn't do it anyways. Mr. Guerrero, from fiscal year 2020 to present, what has been the ask from GDOE for their budget? And then correspondingly, what has been provided to them in the budget? Just in the budget.
I can pull out the information to you, Senator. Just give me a second here.
Pardon me?
I can pull out the information for you. You wanted to know what the DOE's request was since 2022 or 3?
2020.
2020, okay. I need to go back on that one, all right?
You want to take a break?
That would be nice, yes.
Mr. Chair, can we take a break so they can be the vote?
We are in recess to get that information. Legislature is back in session.
Okay, Senator Blas, again, your question was, you wanted to know what GDOE's budget request was going back to 2020?
Yes, sir.
All right, starting with 2020, the total request from GDOE was $343,958,925. In 2021, it was $365,019,030. In 2022, it was $373,164,776. In 2023, it was $268,324,377. In FY24, it was $287,361,715. And for the current, and for FY25, it was $303,393,921. And in the FY26 request, they are requesting $306,345,817. And that was the original request that was submitted back in January
Okay.
or March.
That was the request. Well, what was received? The same time frame.
What they received starting in 2020 was $219,854,237. In 2021 was $206,992,545. In 2022, it's $204,965,854. In 2023 was $231,120,315. In 2024 was $246,907,948. In 2025 was $266,388,110.
Okay, and assuming that there are no changes to the budget, what is it that they?
These are the amounts I just cited to you, Senator, was the amounts that was appropriated in the Budget Act to
That's
GDOE.
right.
Yes.
Okay, but now for this, the year that we're discussing, assuming that nothing changes, what is that figure?
Are we talking about if you sum it all up, or just for this year?
No, for the next fiscal year. What is being proposed?
What we are requesting, or what we were asking for in the bill is, hold on, I'll give you the exact number in the bill. It's the total is $266,291,272.
Okay. So basically, your 2019, or I asked you to start from 2020, right? There was a $124 million difference. 2021, there was a $158 million difference. 2022 was a $168 million difference. And then it was 37 million, then 40 million, then 37 million. Last question of in the same years. What was their excess or their lapses per year? Do you have that information?
For the last year, 4 years.
For the last, since 2020.
That one, Senator, I would need just a little, give me about a minute or so, see if I can pull it out. But I can give it to you from starting 2022. But 21 and 20, I would have to kind of go back.
Okay, let's try that.
For FY22, This is as per the audit. GDOE surplus 7 million. 7 million.
7.
For FY23, as per the audit, they surplus 1.1 million.
Okay.
In FY24, this is based on the CER report as of September 30th, 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. This is based on the September EFSC report. They were showing a total amount of 22 million. And in FY25, again, based on the same report, they're showing an estimated lapse fund of 11 million.
The reason why, Mr. Chair, I wanted the stark contrast, stark differences thing is, obviously, GDOE never got the amounts that they were asking for, okay? And it was based on certain figures. But even in those same years that were reported, there were still excesses, okay? So it goes back to the concern that we have there. You may have the money, but if you don't have the resources to be able to do it, you're not going to be able to spend it. Okay, so I think we got a work cut off for us in the next fiscal year. I just don't want to hear that, this big bad Republican side never helped out in trying to get you the money. We give you the money, but you still have excess. Okay, which makes it very difficult to say we can give you more. You haven't even spent the excess, and now we give you more. So we've got to tighten our belt. Last question. How many curriculum instructors do you have? How many curriculum instructors do you have?
Are you referring to instructional coordinators?
Yeah, those guys.
Oh, geez. I can confirm with the staffing pattern. ICs, instructional coordinators. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Senator, he's pulling it up on our staffing pattern.
Just filtering out a couple of people. There you go. Senator, across all the different divisions that do have them, and there are also a couple that are school-based, there's a total of 105 instructional coordinator teacher status employees. They do spread out across special education, the gifted and talented education program, the federally funded consolidated grant program, et cetera. But that's the total number. My understanding is that all of the ones from curriculum instruction, all of the school-based ones, of course, have already been there. We have some that are assigned to DYA, and then the ones from SPED are roaming. So they aren't stationed at an individual school, but they provide services to all the different schools where they have to service the SPED teachers.
Okay. And they all have teacher status, right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. 105 curriculum instructors, 54 teacher vacancies. Guess where you can get your vacancies?
Oh, Senator, they're already filling vacancies.
They're already filling teacher slots.
So they're back in the
Yes,
classrooms.
Sir.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. That's good to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
My time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Vice Speaker, please take the chair.
Chairman Dueñas, you're recognized.
Mr. Vice Speaker. on the table that was just presented, just so that the people, and I can send this chart so that the people understand, from 2020 all the way till current, it's an appropriated at 564 million request, and the average delta between what you requested and received is $94.2 million. That's how I want to set up my questioning. Steve, Mr. Guerrero, please explain to us at this point the conversation that we're having earlier. The comment was that Department of Education for this year was placed in the reserve. Go ahead and let the body know once again what that's about.
Senator, what I mentioned earlier was that if you look at the executive budget, the way it was put together, especially in particular for GDOE, GDOE historically was part of the breakdown in the line agencies allocation when you look at the department's breakdown. This year, it was kind of lumped with the reserve category and not identified as a separate department as all the other departments and agencies were listed. So that's how GDOE's budget was presented in this year's EBR.
So translation for that is there's a lump sum, like what I asked the question earlier while the fiscal team is here, there's a lump sum appropriation for how many agencies within the reserve?
No, how many departments in lump sum?
17.
Senator, under the reserve category in this year in the EBR, there's a total of 17 departments that were listed.
Can you enumerate them, please?
Sure. Well, the names of the departments.
Oh, so it's right there, but okay, you want to pull it up? We can, you want this one instead?
Yeah, just make it bigger. Okay, I'm starting with the, of course, the Guam Legislature, Office of Finance and Budget, Unified Judiciary Public Defender Service Corporation, the Mayor's Council of Guam, Office of Public Accountability, Office of Attorney General, Guam Visitors Bureau, Guam Election Commission, Guam Ancestral Lands Commission, Chamorro Land Trust, Guam Department of Education, Guam Academy Charter School, Council, University of Guam, Guam Community College, and Guam Commission for Educator Certification.
What's the grand total of appropriation, local and federal funds for all of those agencies and entities?
For all 17 departments, the grand total was $461,577,135.
So on the formula basis of the distribution without the reserve, with the reserved account, this is how you arrived at the $266 million appropriation for education.
Senator, what we did was that since the reserve category did not break down specific appropriation for each department and agencies, what we did is we went back into the FY25 allocation and kind of pulled out basically every department's appropriation in the Budget Act and summed it up and took a percentage of those departments and agencies, and then took those percentages and applied it against the reserve category, which again, this category is supposed to provide the appropriation for all these agencies, and then that's how we derived up with the breakdown for each department and agency's appropriation as reflected in the bill.
Mr. Guerrero, did you receive the submission from Department of Education for their budget request in January?
I believe, Senator, we received their budget, I think, in February, if I'm not mistaken, either February or March.
Mr. Paul, is that correct? I think you gave me a different indication earlier.
It may have been, I know it was the day that it was due, but we contacted them OFB, and they agreed we could turn it in the next day because we were trying to get it down that afternoon.
What date is that?
I don't remember the exact date, but I can get it and get it back to you.
What month was that?
I thought it was January.
Mr. Bukosa, we spoke offline, and I believe you're confirming that Department of Education submitted their education to request to BBMR sometimes in January.
Senator, to make clear, I started in this position in March, so I was not involved in the preparation of this budget submission. We're currently reaching out to speak to the 2 budget office staff who were, but they also...
I would like to clarify, Senator. We only submitted the budget. I did get that confirmation to OFB. We did not submit it to BBMR.
Okay, good enough. That's a big clarification. So here we are. Now, to my reason for wanting both the finance team from the governor's office, BBMR, and OFB here at the same time, the crescendo is, Steve, on your spreadsheet, what is the EBR for Department of Education? Excuse me, Lester, my bad. It's late in the evening. What is your EBR request for Department of Education?
A moment of brevity, sir, because earlier on the roles were reversed, and he said he got a promotion. So let me absorb this for a second. Sorry, your question again, sir?
Don't take my time. What was the executive budget request under your submission, which has been described by OFB, is involved or was placed this time in the reserve account? By your spreadsheet, what was your EBR request for Department of Education?
So if I may, sir, traditionally we do detail the education agencies. We were asked to take the University of Guam's budget request and our number and put it in the reserve category. We agreed to do that, and we thought it would be appropriate to also include DOE and GCC. So, yes, traditionally you get a line item from BBMR for those 3 agencies. We did combine it in the amount that was referred to earlier at $461 and change. The amount that we have for the EBR is $264 million, and I know you're going to ask this question, so I might as well just answer it. The substitute bill has DOE at $266 million. Both numbers are well above the current FY2025 level of $256 million. The substitute bill does have an increase of $1.9 million above the number that we put in for the reserve categories for the Department of Education. And I will preface that by saying that we don't have information prior to January 31st of what the Department of Education needs are. We are a member. I am the chairman of the ESFC, and we do our best to be able to take the last 3 years' averages and provide a baseline budget number so that when we submit the EBR to the legislature, there's some semblance of like thought put into what it is that judiciary, legislature, mayor's council, and DOE, what their budget levels are. So we don't take this responsibility lightly. We do have a number, and that number that we put in for this year is an increase of about almost $10 million over the current fiscal year. Not quite 10, but it is close.
Voila. So, Mr. Guerrero, do you agree that our estimation of budget requests is 1.9 million above what the EBR is?
As Mr. Carlin said, Senator, yes, we are above basically the FY25 level. We are above the EBR level, approximately about 1.9 million. And again, how we arrived at that number was taking everything into consideration, what the FY25 appropriation was, their past history, the projected lapses, and it was just a number that I just felt that it should be sufficient considering the last 3 years of their expenditures. And if you look at the last 3 years of expenditures, when you keep lapsing, it's hard for me to keep giving an agency monies, especially in the tens of millions, if they're lapsing potential 10 million every year. And that was just my basis of doing it. If there is a need for 20, 30, 40 million for GDOE, then, we need to see it. But historically, the way they've been spending based on the appropriation we've given them, it seemed that it was just adequate. What if, for whatever reason, they're not spending up to the appropriation level of every fiscal year, then I honestly believe it's not a funding issue. It's an internal issue. Whatever restrictions and roadblocks and moguls and mountains they're incurring in their operation, then it's internally. But in terms of funding the agency, and we've proved it over the last couple of years because they're lapsing. And it doesn't make sense to keep giving these agencies monies or allowing them to carry over the lapses if these funds are still there. And that's the basis of how we determine their ceiling.
Mr. Carlson, we recognize.
Thank you, sir. Again, what we do we don't have any color for what DOE is asking for. So we take, similar to what OFB is doing, take the 3-year average of what the budgets are. We actually took into account what fiscal 25 is, and that included an $8.5 million appropriation for maintenance. Now, we have a line item, but that line item is 0 in the OFB budget. But at the end of the day, when you go all the way down, we still have a budget for purposes of providing the EBR to the body that is $1.2 million less than the OFB number. We did not, and I need to stress this, we did not have the luxury of input from DOE in the formulation of the EBR. I'm not saying it would change things. I'm just saying we need to provide a budget. The executive budget request is honestly just the line agencies that the governor has control over. The reserve agencies, as OFB very succinctly articulated on day 1 in their presentation, is the reserve agencies that don't come to us but come to you. When they come to you, we can only take what it is that has been traditionally funded and put a number together. I said it time and time again, it's a beginning of a discussion. It is not like a product of deep thought. that would be undertaken for the 36 agencies that are under the governor's control, because everybody else outside of the executive budget comes to you after we submit the executive budget request. So we're giving you the best analysis of what we think we are going to need for these spending priorities after we make a very, very good determination of what the revenues are for the ensuing fiscal year.
Well, we're going to talk about the issue now, because you weren't here this morning, and I know you were predisposed. But there's a PDN article right now. We're going to get down to brass tacks here that says we basically can't survive, Swanson warns, layoffs, at least 10 more school closures if they don't get $40 million more. OFB, did you just hear that BBMR said basically we were 1 point something million above what the EBR calculates to be?
If we're talking about the difference, Senator, between the two numbers as presented, yes.
For the luxury of being able to explain what was discussed earlier from DOE, they have an $11 million lapse of what they call calculated lapses. I don't even know what the heck that means. I've never heard it before. And $14 million in lapses of budgeted vacancies. I'm going to cut to the chase here between BBMR and OFB. If this kind of headline is going to continue to go out, and members in the body here went over and over again saying they want to appropriate 20, 30, 40 million more dollars to education, Department of Education, GDOE, and we have spent days here saying that we are just beautiful on the numbers with the exception of not wanting to roll back the BPT. Where's that money going to come from?
Sir, okay. We presented something to the body, and our differences are in two places with the revenues. One is the rollback of the BPT, which is 40 million. The other one is the withholding tax at 7. So we have a delta of $47 million. Everything else I did, state we're very much in agreement with.
Are you on the record?
I will say, sir, for the record, that absent the two differences, and they're notable, that it's $47 million that we would love to have seen put back into the total revenues for the expenditure of the government of Guam in 2026. We do, our differences are that, $47 million. I will note for the record, just being candid, their ask of 306 and number from OFB, this happens to be 266, and that just happens to be $40 million. We did these calculations in silos. We didn't do any of this stuff, in coordination. We certainly didn't have DOE's number before we provided the EBR. We didn't have OFB's number until just recently. So there's been a case made prior to me talking by the folks over at DOE that they need additional money. That's up to you to decide, not for us to decide. That's your call. So I'm ambivalent as to what it is that you actually end up doing. I understand some of the things that you have an issue with as far as lapses, the inability to spend. I think, just to summarize, a question was asked, even if we gave you everything that you asked for, could you spend it all? I think the jury's out on that, but it's a huge number. It's a big undertaking. And I understand the need to be able to promote education from the bottom and the top, and that ultimately it helps with nurses, teachers, professionals, accountants, everything that Dr. Nahulawa had said. Maybe we have some failures going up to where, if I remember correctly, it's praxis, getting that number. Now that's a policy thing. That's a policy thing. We collectively are providing the resources. We have a big divide on the BPT. Admittedly, we have a big divide. I'm not here to draw blood. You know me, I know you. I understand what you're doing. I may not agree with it. Quite frankly, I don't agree with it. But it is what it is that we're faced with. And this body needs to be able to juggle what it is that's been presented to them, defended by the agencies that come before you. Some of them, a lot of them, especially the biggest one, DOE, never confides with us on what it is that's going to be coming here. So we're at a disadvantage. So again, I think some of the very basic but extremely there's a big ticket attached to our differences. But we do have differences, and they're fundamental differences. However this budget turns out rests within you guys in consultation with the governor, and whatever it is that's the best outcome for the people of Guam is what we all want. Whatever that outcome from the body is, we'll discuss it.
I'm going to dispel a narrative right here, right now. Anything that the other side of the aisle says that we are big, bad Republicans is off the table, because we actually appropriated more to education than the ABR calls for. Let me handle this, Lester. And the bottom line is, because I'm sitting right next to my speaker, you are not going to paint us that way. That is not going to happen. So going forward, there's been a lot of talk about this passing the buck, and we're passing the buck to you because we did this, that, and whatever with the budget. Now you're saying to us, we got more of an appropriation education than you do, and you want us to make the decision because they say if they don't get $40 million, the sky is going to fall, and they're going to start laying off people, slashing things, education is going to fall, yet we have more of a request than you do, and all that's going to happen. Do you believe that?
Cumulatively, sir, you're putting your position in my mouth. And I don't appreciate that because I
know how that feels. Because their position is in my mouth too.
Thank you. Because remember, for the record, Mr. Byrne and I have been here since Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We had a break on Thursday. We're back here. We have never, ever said DOE throughout the entirety of our presence to you. Now you're asking us to serve as a deal breaker for what it is that your budget presents. All I'm saying, sir, is that we have philosophical differences. And I never, ever said anything about the disparity between what it is that we presented in the EBR, not knowing what the budget request for DOE is going to be, because it's the beginning of a discussion. And we are in this discussion. All of a sudden, quite frankly, prior to the break, there was a whole lot of landslides and falling of the roof on me and Mr. Burns' shoulders that, quite frankly, was misplaced. We did not ever insinuate, start, or proliferate any discussions that were contrary to what DOE is presenting. We're here to defend are revenue projections that were submitted. You have submitted a substitute bill that differs from that. That is our philosophical difference. It doesn't matter where it is the funding goes. We still have a philosophical difference. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not the one that's like chirping in your ear about what's going on, putting like press releases out and things that seem to have gotten your gander up. That's not me. We're here to work with you.
And the narrative on this floor. So I'm just going to ask you one fundamental question.
Sir, the narrative on the floor is not me.
I understand that, but I'm here to dispel it. So what I'm going to ask you right now is this. The
Sir.
delta, no, I'm asking the questions, Lester.
But don't point your finger, please.
The delta here.
Don't point your finger.
We can do this all night.
We can.
I'm going to tell you right now,
But
the
you
delta.
asked me to come here without asking me why I was going to be here. You want me to defend you. I'm not here to defend you. Let's make that clear.
I don't want you to defend me. I want to tell you something.
See,
that's
there you
true.
go again.
That's true.
Put that finger
The 40,
down, bro.
the 40
Put
million,
that
the
finger
40
down.
million. Yeah, that's what you want to do. Steve, the $40 million that we're actually talking about here, and the delta and the gulf that we have, doesn't it come from the same funding sources that we've been discussing this entire time? Tax refunds, other provisions, things that aren't included, because that's the funding source. There's no more other $41 million.
Senator, the $41 million we identified to the 0.5% rollback of the BBT was incorporated into the bottom line when we started the distribution of appropriation for all the departments and agencies. That $41 million didn't go to any one specific agency, an expense, or a program. It was embedded into the bottom line, and then we started to allocate as we do every year. What we do in the budget, and which is the most important thing, is to determine what is the bottom line of the revenues before we even do any type of allocation. Because if we don't determine the bottom line revenue allocation, then by the time we start appropriating, we're going to be either most likely over appropriating what we anticipate to collect. That's why it's important to establish it. And once we establish it, then we start to do the allocation and the appropriation in the bill. But only until such time do we do that.
Do you agree that we've adopted the revenues by closing Chapter 1?
I would like to think so, sir, but if I recall correctly, I think there is a bookmark in Chapter 1 right now.
I'm not worried about bookmarks. I'm worried about what's in there right now. Did we adopt the revenues?
If you're asking me, Senator, my opinion, whether or not the revenue identified in the bill is sufficient, my answer is yes.
So, Lester, now you know we adopted the revenues. And I will close with this, so that when it goes to the other side of the aisle, I'm going to sit back and enjoy myself. The same funding source that's being fought over here with regard to not reducing the BPT is the same funding source that our friends on the other side want to use to appropriate. So the reality is, this is what it comes down to. This fight is over you reduce BPT and you keep the provision in the bill as structured, or you disseminate that money other places, because the sky is falling all around the world, even though the EBR and the request from OFB are basically, we're higher for education, and the budgets other than the $7 million are the same. That's the real narrative.
The real narrative, sir, is that we disagree with the rollback of the BPT at $40 million and the non-inclusion of our withholding tax at $7 million. The delta is $47 million, and we will stick to our druthers and what it is that we think can be done. What this body does, reducing resources available for education, is before you today, public safety, and the myriad of improvements that we need for roads. If this is the policy of this body, never mind Republican or Democrat, never mind. If this body, if this budget gets passed at these budget levels, you're sending a signal that we do not have, even though we could collect the revenue sufficient to continue the upward trajectory of this government to the disdain of the 1-2% of BPT payers. I'm going to say, and I've said it, I didn't want to be as eloquent or lack of being eloquent, but when you point your finger at me, you're going to get this back. I don't care if you don't care. I really don't. I'm not here to make you look good. I'm here to defend what it is that we set down, and I'm not going to refrain from defending that. Thank you, sir.
And I don't
Thank
ask
you.
that. And I don't ask that. And I'll tell you right now, that's our job to do. You're right. But we're fighting over the same pot of money. Let the games begin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Dueñas.
Not a game.
Senator Gumatalto, you're recognized.
You call me down here.
Thank you,
you
Mr.
invite
Chair.
me down here and you treat me like this, and then you walk away. Huh? You walk away, bro.
Hey,
Keep it up.
Director of Budget, it's nice seeing you here this evening too, by the way. Appreciate you being here. And I didn't think I'd get a chance to see you ahead of, but you kind of played your hand a bit to all of us today. I appreciate your role, but we're both co-equal, aren't we? And we have a lot more to go. Thank you so much for your attendance today. I wanted to ask you, because it's about education, because I think you brought something pretty important to this discussion from this morning. Was your
Point of order,
analysis,
Mr. Chair.
Was your analysis?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Just dispense.
Can you disclose?
Just a point of order on the time, Mr. Chair. Senator Dueñas had 10 minutes.
Mr. Carlson,
No, Senator Gumatalto, if you can just take just a pause.
Dispensa.
No,
Yeah.
Senator Barnett.
I just wasn't sure because the time previous was 10. So
If you can give me a second to explain.
Thank you.
The time was set at 10. I corrected the timekeeper to put it down to 5 minutes, and she put it down to 4 minutes, 45 seconds. So Senator Dueñas did not have 10 minutes, he had 5 minutes. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just
Thank you,
dispense
Senator
us.
Warren.
I thought I saw the 10, and I just wanted it to be consistent.
In the
yeah.
beginning, you
Even
did see...
though they're on the
No,
other side of the aisle, I just wanted it to
No.
be the same for everyone. So
I
thank
understand that, but like I said, it was originally at 10 minutes. I turned to the timekeeper, and I corrected the timekeeper. She turned around and corrected and adjusted the clock to 4 minutes, 45 seconds. Okay? Senator Gumatalto, apologies for interrupting. You're recognized. We'll take a 1-minute recess. Committee on the whole is called back to order. Timekeeper, please set the clock to 4:43. As I was speaking, I interrupted Senator Gumatauta as I was trying to clarify with Senator Barnett the actual time for what was talking. No, thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Gumatauta, you may continue, and I apologize for the interruption.
And no worries. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you, Lester, for your explanation earlier, because I think that was needed ahead of time. And so, knowing your experience, Mr. Guerrero, can I ask you this? In your over 4 decades of service to the people of Guam in a budget role, is Mr. Carlson's kind of explanation of the creation of the DOE budget for the executive budget, is it pretty close to what you might have seen at any time in your 4 decades of experience?
As far as his explanation of the development of the budget, he's pretty accurate.
And I mean for DOE.
For DOE, like I said, this year, normally in a fiscal year budget, GDOE is classified, if you look at into the budget, into the executive budget, it's line item under public education, together with all the other educations agencies. This year, they just took it out, including UOG, including GCC, and put it in the reserve category and no longer under public education. That's the only difference.
So at least it's close to what you might have seen over your course of your professional career in budgeting.
As far as I'm concerned, Senator, this is the first time it's ever been done.
Okay, that's fine with at least the explanation for me, because this now has to go back to DOE. Mr. Chairman, in the minutes of the June 17, 2025 Guam Education Board meeting, Board member and Vice Chair Dr. Mary Okada explained that the board resolution for the 2025 budget dictates that lapses from retirements and resignations should be used to fill CBA positions, fund the CIP, and enhance school security, and not be delayed until 2026. She pointed out in that same meeting that vacancies for administrative staff at the central office should not have been filled, as those lapses should have been redirected to CBA positions, CIP, or security systems. The minutes continued that she clarified that the resolution was passed when the budget and spending priorities were finalized. Mr. Swanson or Dr. Swanson, were any members of the board aware of your letter that you presented today to the Guam Legislature?
Yes, Dr. Okada and Member Maria Gutierrez.
Were the board members aware of Mr. Paul's testimony about lapses from recent fiscal years?
Are you speaking of the...
I'm speaking of $41.1 million in lapses over the last 4 years. Were they aware?
That wasn't my testimony.
Let me just say, were they aware of the lapses?
Were the board members aware? I cannot answer that, but that was not my testimony.
Thank you for that. Because you came in here, you said reducing force. That was the message that you brought to the people's house. Based on statute, it appears that your decision to write and present that here is that of yours and the Guam Education Board. Reducing school communities are the decisions of your teams and the board. So if you're telling us this, or based on the letter, we do look forward then, I guess, to the collective action and your steady hand to make sure that it's going to happen, because the rules and regulations dictate that. So can we start with when you're going to advise the whole of the district of your cuts or your austerity measures?
Senator, like was mentioned in the morning, those consequences are dependent upon the, what funding level gets passed, and then also the outcome of the maximization efforts to determine where can we truly shore up and say, okay, maybe the personnel costs we could reduce here.
Okay, I'll ask again. When can you tell us you're going to start to advise the whole of the district of your cuts or austerity measures?
As soon as the funding bill, as we did last year, or in the current fiscal year. As soon as the funding bill is passed and we have to turn in a Schedule F, we will identify where we're going to make these cuts to meet what the appropriation is.
And using a line from our Vice Speaker, trust but verify. My good colleague from EPAN earlier told us of your austerity measures. Can you please tell us on the record the austerity measures you will be implementing with the passage of the FY2026 budget for GDOE?
Well, I know one thing for sure, Senator, the $3.2 million for network switches.
Okay, so
that will be one of the first things we
Mr. Paul, the people of Guam can't see the spreadsheet in front of us, so can you go ahead and tell us what the austerity measures are going to be?
Which is what I was just telling you. One of the first things we will have to cut out is everything we are trying to do to upgrade our network so it does not fail on us. Okay, and that includes these network switches, which are 12 years old, only supposed to last 5 years. They're supporting our schools, and they are 12. They were installed in 2022. They're 13, or 2012. They're 13 years old. The cost of those network switches is $3.2 million. So that will be the first place we cut. But when the system fails, I hope this body understands that that funding the deteriorating infrastructure is important to GDOE. We don't care about whether it's Republican or Democrat. We have an infrastructure out there that is failing. It's old, and it needs to be taken care of. And hopefully, this body as a whole, I don't care about the politics, will do the right thing and realize we have an old infrastructure on our campuses. We can't keep our maintenance up. We can't keep our IT up. And that's why we're here before the board, before the legislature.
So the senator for EPAN had a list, so you only named one. Is there anything else?
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and read off the items that were proposed. This was developed by myself as the budget office to try and meet the 266 appropriation. We'll start from contractual because generally that's the first place we go to prior to cutting personnel. The line items cut include $135,000 as a supplemental to the ground maintenance contract services requested in the original proposal. This proposal, or this contract cut, really is actually just to align with the full fiscal year cost. So we're reducing the cost of what was requested because it didn't truly align with the full fiscal year cost. Moving to the next, $60,000 for the vehicle fleet and heavy equipment maintenance. As Jimmy brought up recently, we were able to use the $10 million supplemental to purchase maintenance fleet vehicles. This has allowed our maintenance personnel to go out to all the different schools with all the equipment rather than having to come back and forth, using their own personal vehicles. We were trying to purchase all the supplies and equipment so that they don't have to use their personal money to purchase tools, hammers, drills, everything from on and on. Moving down, there was a $70,400 cut to annual training for continuing education. This is it's a mandate in the law requiring the government of Guam to provide continuing education training to accountants, financial staff, auditors. These are positions that require consistent yearly education to make sure they're kept well abreast of any changes to generally accepted, our general accounting standards. They change consistently, and so we have to continue to make sure that the staff are kept up to date on what is changing. It also follows with auditors in terms of federal compliance. There's a uniform guidance entire book that you have to be aware of and all of the changes that come up. Moving to the next, there's a $30,000 accreditation cut that's proposed. Like I mentioned, it's to basically reduce the amount we spend on accreditation to just high schools, because as the superintendent mentioned, high schools, it's absolutely necessary. It would be a disaster if we cut accreditation for high schools. So if we have to, maybe that's an option. We can look at cutting accreditation for elementary and middle schools. But like he mentioned, the consequences of this is that the elementary and middle schools who currently undergo the accreditation process, they're using this as something similar to a management audit. they're getting, visitors from, these accrediting agencies who have decades upon decades of experience to come here and look at what are we doing in our schools. Is it something that aligns with best practices? Is there anything that we need to update and change in terms of services provided to our schools? Moving down to the next, $15,878 for the NASB membership fees. This is, again, it's a vital information sharing source that the Board of Education has used to great effect. They've been back and forth with NASB, getting all of this important information of what are other school boards in the country doing. Moving on, $5,000 for postage fees. This is something, of course, as a department, we have to provide mail services for all these different kinds of documents that have to get sent out, whether it's former employees, current employees, sending checks to vendors, that kind of situation. $7,350 for membership fees for financial affairs. Same situation. These are vital information sharing services. $1,734 membership for SHRM. This is a human resources professional organization that, once again, they provide key information sharing. $259,000 for SPED database, as alongside the $100,000 for the TINET student management. These are case management systems that the department currently does not have, that we need to establish in order for us to properly track the case information for all of our disabled students, whether they're special education qualified or they're non-special education qualified, but they're still disabled. Moving on, there's $153,000 for the supplemental for interscholastic sports. This was essentially what Deputy Paul was referring to. These are coach pay stipends that are currently being bankrolled through the general fund. We essentially pull lapses from the general fund to fund the additional. The reason why there's a lapse, even though the actual stipend pay for the coaches hasn't gone up, it has gone up from the federal, but from the local side it's remained the same, is because the cost of the contracts, the officiating leagues, all of these different things that have to actually provide the other services apart from coaching, their costs have gone up. Moving on, there's $3.2 million that was mentioned for the switches. There's different entries here for the school radios, post-commission training certification. These are for qualifying employees who can get certified under the post-commission, licensed professional counselor exams. Moving on to the next page, we're talking $40,000 for, sorry, let me just add this up because it's really all about our website. It's 7, 9, 10, 135, $150,000 to make sure that our public website, the GDOE website, is accessible. They have to ensure that all of our documents are up there, all of them are in alignment with different requirements, and are secure. They're not open to cyber attacks, all of these different security. Moving on, $1.2 million, which was brought up previously about the Salapi Principat. Again, self-help funds for the principals so that way we don't have so much of a backlog within the procurement system of, oh, it's taking us forever to get your bid together because we have to gather the information. Oh, the funds just aren't available for supplies because it's not in the spend plan. Oh, we're trying to wait until we can collect lapses in order to fund that kind of purchase. $518,000 again for division supplies and materials. This really hasn't been a big issue in past years because we've been banking on all of the ARP supplies and materials that were purchased throughout the pandemic. But once we get through that stockpile, what are the divisions and what are the divisions and schools going to use? We have to start paying locally for things that are no longer available now that they've been expended. Moving on, $140,000 for the Public Library Resource Fund Supplemental. Again, this is additional funds that we're looking for to try and get our libraries additional funds so they can purchase more books, or they can purchase more equipment that will make our libraries more accessible and more usable and more fruitful for the students who are going to use them. That could lead to additional computers, that can lead to, that are more well equipped. It's We're not looking at purchasing just laptops because we purchased 30,000 of them, as the OPA reported. But we're looking to try and get, maybe a more higher spec computer that can do engineering programs, that can provide other services. Moving on, 200,000 for the interscholastic sports supplemental. Again, this is in equipment now. This would have provided additional funds outside of the limited gaming fund that, of course, we discussed it in the morning, to provide additional funds for equipment specific to the ISA, because we would like to then use the limited gaming funds to provide the funds for our actual physical education classes. Moving on, the 169,000 for FSAS computer equipment. This is to ensure that the IT division is not stuck using our student laptops, which really just aren't spec'd to provide the right type of services and performance. Moving on, 250,000 for expected workers' compensation. This is already just based off of what the HR has looked at in terms of current claims based on what their expected costs will be. So outside of this, this is an obligation. There's an obligation. There's no way for us to just refuse to pay for the workers' comp. So it has to be looked at. Then we move down to power. This one, of course, we reduced it from the original ask, which was 20 million. We reduced it down to 18. This is generally based off of savings we are hoping to realize based on the opening of the Ukudu power plant. We're hopeful that it will realize. Of course, there's also savings in some power from the schools that are closing, potentially, but we have to realize it. And we're comfortable with this level, but again, it's going to be really dependent on what it looks like. Now that we've moved students around, the power may decrease at one school, but it's going to go up at another, and that still has to be assessed what that looks like. And then now we go back to the top, now that we've gone through the entirety of contractual and operations. This is where the bulk of the cuts are going to come from, which is personnel. $2 million from the local use of federal employees. This is a long-standing issue in the department because of the shortages in terms of positions and bodies. Schools have to essentially ask their federally funded grant employees, I need you to cover the gate. I need you to go with supervision. I know it's not part of your job duties. Maybe they're a TA, but it's something that the local side then has to pick up because it's not chargeable to the grant. It's a similar issue you hear around. They're federally funded, so they're required to do certain types of jobs. 245,000 for teacher prep. This was brought up. It's one of our options we use to cover the shortages in terms of certified teachers. $7.7 million for the on-call substitute teachers. This is funding our ability to, again, provide coverage because we know that we're running short on certified teachers, so we have to find coverage somewhere, and these are the teachers, the substitute teachers that would provide some of that coverage. $5 million from non-CBA vacancies, $540,000 from non-CBA new positions. Again, I read out the list of all the items, and they're all the different positions. And then you go $7.7 million for CBA new and CBA vacancies. Again, these are all school aides, clerks, library techs, support staff for our schools. If you look around at any of our parents, if you ask them, are there enough school teachers? Are there enough school aides in your school? They're going to tell you, clearly it's not. And then, of course, the final one, which was the biggest, $21 million from the filled positions. Like we mentioned, this could be a RIF. This could be a reduction in hours. It could be this and that. But first, we're going to cut everywhere else we can. But before we do all of that, we're going to do all of that cuts to whatever else we can. And before any kind of layoffs or anything, we're going to maximize as much as we can. And then we're going to essentially try to avoid any kind of layoffs. But that's the numbers are the numbers. I want the body to at least refocus on, at the end of the day, the items in this list, as Deputy Paul mentioned back in March, there's no fluff in here. These are all essential services. We could cut some of these items here to the maintenance of the schools. There's all these different grounds maintenance contracts, solid waste. Sure, we could cut that, but look what's going to happen to our schools. Food service, we could cut some money from there, but of course we can't provide food then. We can look at all the different financial issues that were ongoing with the government, or especially with the Guam Department of Education. Look at what's happening with the FY2024 audit. We're not, trying to hide anything that, we're struggling to get these things done. And a lot of it is because we need to ensure that these things are getting funded. SPED database, all these different student support options, or the network for the department. At this point, you know, when I look to what can we do if we cut, you know, it's really just reducing services. And I completely understand where, you know, Steve and, you know, everyone is coming from in terms of, you know, we continue to give you money over and over and you continue to fail to spend the money, but it all just leads back to a capacity issue.
We are crafting your budget, and appropriations going to come your way. There are many in this hall who have been a part of running a department, agency, and branches of government. You and your respective team will need to make very hard decisions. That is your mandate for priorities, all of them. Now, the board is watching today. That reported $50 million in lapses. They're seeking some answers. This is just one part of it. You're going to need to explain it to them. Again, when we think about the work that's being done here, okay, this is all about trying to support the whole of education on Guam. I know my time is almost up, Mr. Chair, but thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you, Senator Gumatautal. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and buenas noches to the people of Guam. And I just first want to apologize for the combativeness from my colleagues relative to just the questioning and the narrative that, I mean, listen to this. We're giving too much money to education. We're giving too much money to our public school students. But we're not giving too much money to the richest corporations on Guam. And now they expect you to make hard choices about our public schools because they've chosen to prioritize $80 million in tax discounts for the wealthiest businesses on our island. And that comes at a cost. And that cost is critical public services for our poor public students who don't earn $20, $30, $40, $50, $100, $500 million. It's frankly disgusting what we're hearing in here tonight. Acting like these lapses, which from what I'm hearing are obligated, acting like these lapses are a blank check. Acting like if you make $50 million in cuts to critical services, that somehow the Department of Education is going to roll on, that things are going to be okay. Let's talk about the price per pupil, because that was brought up earlier. Hawaii, the price per pupil, upwards of $15,000. California, $19,000. San Diego, $20,000. Guam Department of Education, $10,000. So I don't know if my colleagues think that our public school students just aren't worth it, but that's what I'm hearing in here. That we have continually underfunded education for years, so let's keep on doing it. Let's keep on doing it while the rich eat and the public school students starve. It's disgusting. And they say don't pit the private sector against the public sector. But this private sector payoff is costing the public sector, the public school kids, the teachers, the staff of the Guam Department of Education. It's catastrophic. And I know they feel it in their heart. That's why they're so defensive. Superintendent, thank you for engaging the media. Thank you for getting this story published. Because I believe you won't be able to survive. These colleagues of mine had high praises for you, Superintendent Swanson. Many of them say you're the best superintendent we've had in a long, long time. But I guess when these corporations got in their ears, maybe they forgot that. Because now they're saying it doesn't make sense to give you more dollars. It doesn't make sense to support our public school students. Mr. Pangilinan, thank you for your testimony. I teared up. I watched it when I went home. We don't want to go back. We don't want to go back. We went 2 steps forward, and now my colleagues want to take us back 10 years, telling you to make hard choices. It was very easy for them to make the choice to put critical public services in the back seat. It was an easy choice. The corporations are getting everything they want. $40 million this year, $40 million next year, $80 million. $80 million. And who's going to pay? Our kids in those public schools. That's who's going to pay. Shortchanging these kids. No band equipment, no playgrounds. Can you imagine if we fully funded education, what kind of product we could deliver? This is the priority. Education is the priority. It has to be the priority. But they want to knife you. They want to rifle you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Talahi, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I too want to thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for all your work during very hard times and controversial times. And I know you've seen the legislature disputing what to do with DOE, and I'm sorry for that, and I'm more sorry that the teachers have to see that as well. With all that they have on their plate, they're watching us debate whether we're going to give you what you have all as a team said that you need. And I know that we haven't done it every year, but I am very proud of the fact that every year we have increased GDOE's budget as far back as I can attest to. And that we've tried very hard, and we fought over it, yes. It always seems to be a fight, and I don't understand why. GDOE and the hospital, we are fighting to get them more money, but it's a very tough battle, and it doesn't seem to make sense when we say our priorities are education and healthcare. So I just want to confirm, Mr. Superintendent, I mean, can you make it very clear on our record? Was your total budget for FY25 $266,613,110?
Yes, it was.
And they're proposing in this bill to give you $266,291,272. That, to me, is $321,838 less. Is that your same calculation?
As I understand it, yes.
That's how I understand it, too. And as I said earlier, we've been able to go up since 2022 by $27 million, 2022 to 2023 by $27 million, 2023 to 2024. We've increased DOE's budget by $15 million. And in 2025, we increased DOE's budget despite the fight and despite having to do it through a supplemental by $20 million. And we knew that's still not meeting your complete request. And even if we can't meet your full request this year, I can't understand for the life of me why we would not want to increase your budget at least, and why we would give less than a status quo budget. That doesn't make sense, again, when you've outlined what you need the money for, and that you've outlined very clearly these are necessities. And we could go back to the days of, well, we'd rather use it somewhere else, or we'd rather give breaks to other people, but we decided several years ago, that's not what we're going to put up with anymore. We don't want rats in the schools. We do not want unsafe bathrooms or Calacas bathrooms. We said we did not want that. The people of Guam, more importantly, said they did not want that. Legislature, what in the world are you going to do about that? So please help me to help you. They're trying to make it sound like you don't really need this money because you have so much lapses that you're sitting on. Somebody's talking about 40 million lapses. Mr. Paul, I've never heard that from you. What lapses are you sitting on? And just remind them again, are these lapses because you had contracts in procurement that either got protested or they're still in procurement and that you're trying to use them for very necessary purposes, or are you just sitting on this money?
Our major issue is, yes, we've had contracts that have been protested that we could not initiate. Once June 30th came along and the AG said they will stop reviewing our contracts.
Who said that?
The AG, the Attorney General. For the fiscal year, they're still reviewing for anything we want to submit for FY2026. However, yeah, these were lapses that we, the circumstances caused them to be lapses. And right now we're predicting a lapse of 11 million.
All right. Do you need to use those for the contracts in FY26?
I'm hoping this body will will carry over those lapses as we've done in the previous years so that we could use that money to take care of some of these problems.
Because they want you to cancel those contracts, I think, and use that money for your operations that they're shorting you on.
We are currently filling positions, yes, at the board's direction. As a person leaves the headquarters, resigns, or retires, because there is a lot of stress in the headquarters, because the workload is not going away. But the number of people is dwindling because we need to take that money and apply it to the CBA positions.
What's a CBA position?
The collective bargaining agreement with the Guam Federation of Teachers. So we just can't keep doing that. We need funding to fill those CBA positions.
And the non-CBA, so that you can get your procurements through.
And the non-CBA, so we can get procurements through.
All right. They also think that you've got a big pile of money in that fund that you talked about earlier.
American Rescue Plan?
No.
Oh, the Limited Gaming Fund.
Yes, the Limited Gaming Fund. But we got a report here from Director Byrne that says there's like $300,000 in that, or $3,000. Director Byrne, can you confirm, is there money in this account?
This is the situation because I've confirmed with DOE. We give them the money, therefore it's disappeared from the general fund report. Apparently it's stuck at DOE and wasn't reported to me. So I'm not sure how much is there, but there's something there that isn't spent, or some part of it isn't spent.
Now, there is, from my accountants, there is $2.1 million. I came in August last year and I asked, what are we using that money for? And it was brought up in an EFSC meeting, the first one that Senator Bora attended. Originally, the idea among the group there was, oh, let's just split it among all the schools. You can't buy much. My focus is to try to use that money to repair problems at our sports facilities. And as I mentioned it to the committee, the EFSC committee, nobody objected that one of our high schools can't even play a damn home game. I was an instructor there. I find that a shame. 5 or 6 years, this school has been operating without a sports field. So I brought that to the committee as one of my goals is to get Southern High School's sports field operating so those kids at Southern High School, our only high school, can play home games and practice. They're using Adeloop. as their practice field. So yes, the intent was to use that money, which has carried over since 2012, for Southern High School, to get that sports field up and running so our only Southern high school in the South has a sports field that's operational. It's been broken for who knows how long. I returned to Guam in 2022. It wasn't working then. So yes, there is 2.1 million in that fund. And the intent was to try to use it, and it was brought up with the committee, and everybody, the parent member of that committee, totally agreed with my suggestion, who was the same individual who originally suggested we just split that. We can buy a football every year for these kids, but if they don't have a field to practice on, it doesn't do any good.
All right, I calculated, by the way, Mr. Superintendent, that per student, if we put all the DOE money together, we're spending $11,345 per student. That's all the money, not just the operations money, but all the special funds. And if we did the same for UOG, we are paying $24,574 per student. And I really think we have to realize what we are doing here. We are really laying out what our priorities are. And I really appreciate if you could just remind us, is there any, if the budget stays as it is, what happens to your maintenance? It's not on.
Yes. So currently, when we brought all of the schools up to par, that wasn't the real challenge. The real challenge is to maintain the schools. Maintenance is very costly. The initial cost was a lot, but to maintain them now is going to be more costly than the initial costs. If we don't not get the budget, that's like I said earlier, we might go back to schools not being ready for opening on in August. We have a lot of things that are going on right now. It's not our concentration right now is on re-inspections, but there's so much other things to do. We got to do a lot of crack and spalls in all the remaining schools. That right there, as soon as it rains, majority of the schools leak. All of the inside ceiling tiles, damage. They're very costly. We can't afford to keep changing our ceiling tiles, right? But for public health, we have to. But we need to do all the repairs, the crack and spall on all the schools. That has to happen, hands down. All the restrooms need to be changed out. All of them need to be refurbished. That is at least what we can do for the children of Guam. Those schools have been around for 20, 30 years, and those restrooms have never been renovated. I was up in I was up at Del Perez. I went to school there. I think the same toilet bowl is still there. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the thing looked the same from 20, 30 years ago. I can't believe it. Our children are our future, and everywhere I go and everything I hear in these halls, education, our children. Put your money where your mouth is, guys. Please.
Jimmy, I don't think you were in elementary school 30 years ago.
Please. That's all I'm asking.
Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I want to thank Superintendent Swanson and his team. You came in one of the roughest times ever in GDOE history, and you were committed to helping out. And for that reason, many staff within GDOE are going to miss you. And we see the commitment and the hard work that you've done. And also, to Nick and Jimmy, thank you for taking up the reins. I know GPA was a part of that transition that happened, and they guided you. I know they guided you to help turn GDOE around. And I think what we need to do as a body is to continue to support you in this progress. This is huge. We've had deferred maintenance for decades. And to come in, what is it, a year, 2 years, and turn things around on a dime? Our biggest agency in the government of Guam? That should be applauded and recognized and appreciated. And I know I'm voicing, many people have stated this to me, so you know that you're appreciated. And you're leaving a legacy for us. You're leaving the blueprint to make GDOE progress. And it's not just about the facilities. And I'm going to just say facilities are critical. It builds morale for our teachers. It builds morale for our students, which has serious impacts to their performance. When I first started teaching at Simon Sanchez, I walked in to get interviewed. I saw the holes in the tin awnings, and I thought, how does education happen here? And I found out because the teachers were so committed. And so everything that we do to support GDOE, we've seen the gains happen. For some, may not see it, but it's there. And I just want to also point out, congratulations. You scored higher than California. So Okudu High School, congratulations. Scored higher than the state of California, Oregon, and Washington on a $10,000 per pupil budget, which they outspend us. I don't know how many times, but this is what it takes. This is what commitment does. So thank you, Superintendent. I know you had a big part in this, as well as your team.
Ma'am, thank you for that, but I can't emphasize enough that the watchword that I use with them is that we're all crew, there's no passengers. We have a great crew. They're committed. There's always room for improvement, for sure. But the gains that have been made have been gains that have been made by the whole community. And I have to extend that beyond the staff and the faculty of our schools and our maintenance folks. Our community partners and parents have been a huge asset all along. They're engaged and committed just as well. So this didn't happen just because I'm here, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it was through your leadership, so thank you for that. And, that just goes to show that, we need to continue to support you, and every dollar matters. Yeah, I just, thank you, and continue to do the work that you do. We will still continue to fight for the money that you need, because we know it has true impact, lasting impact. And like I said earlier today, we don't know what the outcome's going to be, but it's so gratifying to see my students take on careers, engineers, doctors, law enforcement, entrepreneurs. So we don't know right away, but we see the impact later down the road. And so that's what a committed educational institution does. They give without knowing what's going to come back to them. But we know it has a positive impact in our society. This is the foundation of our society's education, and we need to start prioritizing it and not demonizing you.
Thank you, Senator.
We know that societies...
Your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question regarding unfunded pension liabilities. How much of GDOE's annual budget of approximately $266 million is absorbed by payments towards the government of Guam's unfunded retirement fund liability? In other words, what dollar amount or percentage of GDOE's budget is dedicated to covering the over $1 billion pension debt that Gov Guam owes its retirement fund and which GDOE must contribute to by law?
Senator, I know we contribute to the retirement fund for our current employees, but I don't know that we've been tasked to contribute to unfunded liability. It's not in our budget.
All right. Because what I'm trying to understand is the cited $11,000 cost per student. I'm trying to understand if pension debt were removed, what would the true per pupil cost of education operations actually be?
I think that when in calculating that number, it's not, and that's just to point out, we're not familiar with a number for unfunded liability, but the number calculating to 11,000 is based on this 266 budget. So if there is, and we'll have to confirm with our accounting to make sure, but it's completely separate from that. So the 11,000 is.
If you want to take out, we'd have to go back and look at our personnel data and take out the retirement piece of that, if you want to see what that cost is.
Yeah, I would love to figure out that number, but really the important point that I'm really trying to illustrate is that the cost per pupil and the sticker price of $250 million towards education could seem very shocking to the people of Guam. But I want them to understand the scale of what education costs in this day and age. Time moves forward. Prices go up. It is no longer 2002, 2006, 2016. There are other jurisdictions in this country that enroll about 25,000 students in their jurisdiction. Glendale, California, North Shore, San Diego, Washington State, Madison Metro SD. Some of these places are producing at $15,000 per pupil, $19,000 per pupil, $20,000 per pupil, $17,000 per pupil. The level that we are funding the Department of Education, though it seems big, when in comparison to what other jurisdictions are doing, we are shortchanging ourselves. We are patting ourselves over the back that we've given $1 million more than what the governor requested. We are at such a deficit. Look at some of these budgets. Glendale Unified, $470 million for 25,000 students. North Shore, $471.7 million. If we had budgets like that, now we're talking. Now we are talking. Hawaii, which has been cited here, they are in the neighborhood of $15,000 per student. So when we're looking at a per student basis, when we're talking about this $40 million in lapsed funds, even if we took the worst absolute case scenario and they were just sitting on $40 million, it's still a drop in a very, very big bucket we need to fill. We don't need to think about how we can do better versus the budgets of yesteryear. We need to do what we can to get our schools in parity with other districts in the states. The people of Guam deserve the same education every other American gets. And that should be reflected in our per capita investment in our students. This isn't going to happen overnight. That's why I've been part of the body that has year over year tried to invest more into education. And I hope we can continue this mission until we get to those appropriate levels where we are funding our students to the tune of $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 per student. Because education is our path to prosperity, and it begins here on our island. And so I don't know what it's got to take to get our budget to the education up to the tune of $470 million. That is a huge, huge pull and a huge ask. But it is something we should aspire to, and we should not be getting so caught up over the amounts that we're fighting over today to lose the big picture that we are chronically underfunded point blank to significant degrees when compared to the rest of the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. Senator Guåhan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello. I think, what I'd like to do is just try and go back, because I want to stand on my position in regards to, I will always continue to try to fight to give GDOE as much as we can. But, when we look at just, Superintendent, Mr. Wade, I've worked closely with you guys over the last 7 months, right? And let's start with the first emergency session that I requested with the speaker. And we went to OFB. Do you guys recall that meeting when we were trying to get some money up front to upfront the cost for, do you guys recall that meeting? Do you remember us leaving that meeting in agreement that you guys were okay to cover the costs?
That was the ARP meeting.
Yes,
March
all these
10th.
meetings were ARP. We left that meeting saying, okay, we don't need to call an emergency
I wasn't
session.
okay at the time, Senator. And I
But
think
based
I
on what
expressed that to you.
OFB, Mr. Wade, let me finish. Based on what OFB presented, I think we had somebody from DOA or BBMR at that time to confirm that based on what you had in your accounts at the time. Maybe you weren't, but the superintendent, we left the meeting, yes or no, we were okay. We said we'll
Yes.
take, and then
we figured a way to do it.
We'll figure a way to do it. We left. A couple weeks later, maybe even a month later, we came back and said, we need money. And then I sent another letter to the speaker requesting for emergency session. We remember that meeting again, and I think we met in my office. We met in my office, and we brought the Committee on Education in. And at that meeting again, we left acknowledging you guys were going to be able to figure it out, because we had 3 meetings, but this was the second meeting. We acknowledged that we were going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking, is there a question
No,
there?
yeah,
Yes.
the question was, at that second meeting again, we had left acknowledging that we didn't need to go into emergency session.
That's
we were
correct.
going to, yes, so that was the second time we asked.
That's correct.
Fast forward, this maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and it was just us, you, Mr. Wade. We called maintenance into my office. ARP got turned back on. We came into my office. I said, do you need money. At the time, the committee chair, budget chair, had identified some money somewhere and said, let's figure out how much they need. We have some money so we can get these projects starting to go. Do you remember this conversation, Mr. Wade?
Yes, I do, Senator Chair.
And then I asked, did you need more money? What was your response at the time?
My response is I had done the analysis, and based on the funds we had at the time, which includes some of these lapses that are being discussed, we've scrounged up enough money to pay the bills, and it will cover us through the entire process.
And is that the money that you're currently using right now to rotate, to
yes.
revolve these payments?
Yes, Senator.
Do you remember at that time as well, these guys on the side, Dr. Nahalawa, or I think Jimmy at the time was like, he stopped and he said, no, we need more money. But then you guys argued.
He said that first, and then I said, Senator, I've done the analysis. We can take care of this.
Okay.
But of course, that's knowing, we're talking about a difference between March and June. So back in March, I was still worried about the other things we were trying to accomplish on our spending plan.
So where I'm going, and again, Mr. Wade, Dr. Swanson, I think for me, my position is, even at that time, right, and I'm saying this because I don't want, it's being painted as we're not trying to give you guys money. I think even at that time, right, that would have been the opportune time to say, we need that money because I'm using money from other things. The reason I bring this up is because, Jordan spent 20 minutes earlier reading all the things that we couldn't pay. So just some random things that you said, if we didn't give you this funding, how were those items that you listed paid for in this current fiscal year?
Senator, many of these items aren't being paid for.
When was the last time they were paid?
I mean, switches as the example that keeps coming up.
Well, I mean, just some other random stuff. I get the switches thing. That's a huge thing that you're saying that's more than just paying. You have to probably do a scope of work.
Then the next one would be the CBA position, Senator.
Okay, so go ahead.
We are trying to fill those CBA positions. There are 162 of them when we submitted the budget, and maybe down to about 140 now. But we're paying for those by not filling positions at our headquarters in Tijuana at Central, which is causing the problems we're having with, for example, fulfilling procurement contracts.
These are the austerity measures that were mentioned throughout the day. It's, when the appropriation comes as it does, GDOE is forced to make cuts where it has to in order to meet the bill.
How many unfilled teacher positions did you guys have this fiscal year?
At its highest?
Yes.
Over the course of the year, the beginning of last school year, we started with approximately 100 vacant positions. We're starting with 54. And there's been a significant turnover of new hires and retirements in the course of that. But that we're at a net negative 54 right now.
So what I'm trying to get at, right, is I know we're highlighting in all the different things that are going to be cut, and we're there's this picture being painted that we're not going to fund these. What I'm trying to understand is what here is going to be cut for the very first time because you're not going to get the money that you're asking for. Because what I'm trying to understand is. And we talked about this today, about how you guys juggle around payments to make ends meet that you can't keep up. So even as you present this, I'm still trying to understand how you put this together even when we talk about what you need to pay, when you need to pay it, why you have this much money, there's never really a clear answer. So was this something given to you guys by the board, or is this something put together? And these
are requirements as we build our budget. We call in each of the schools, we call in the divisions. They explain to us what they need and do the research on the dollar amounts, and that goes into our budget. And I'll go back to the switches. Yes, we haven't funded those before, but they're getting to the point where if we continue to, we're going to run into a problem. So it's something I ask this body to consider. we are neglecting these critical aging infrastructure that in our IT that needs to be replaced. And at some point, it's going to stop. The system is going to break down. And we just can't afford that. All of the security contracts, the network security, the Power School subscription, the Munis subscription, those are our three big, the network itself, Power School subscription, and the network subscription. These are things we find a way to pay for it, and thank God for ARP. Thank God there was COVID, because that paid for most of it for the past 3 or 4 years. The problem is we don't have those funds anymore. And we look at the other grants. The other grants are limited as to what we can purchase with them. They're not like ARP. And ARP, it was a struggle even just to get the refurbishments in it. I don't know if you recall, but during that 3-month pause, we asked US Ed if they will continue to cover the refurbishment, and they said no. Luckily, in the June 28th letter, they've continued it. But now that that federal money is not there, a lot of this stuff was covered with federal money. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. You're saying, what have we not paid before? It's what's going to happen when we allow these aging systems to break down.
I think what's important, and again, Dr. Superintendent, it's, the ask has been there. What can we do to help you? And I mean, every time we've come to the table, for whatever reason, why we've always walked away with, we're going to be okay. So for the record, right, at least 3-4 weeks ago, I said, hey, do you need more money to pay for ARP? What was your answer at the time?
I believe my answer was we could always use more because that would accelerate the process, which is in our best interest to move this closer to conclusion, because as readily as the money was turned on, it could be turned back off again. And I think that's pending a number of lawsuits in the mainland that are all related to how different states were affected by the changes in how ARP was being administered through US Ed. So that was my concern then, if we had more. But I also know, shy of a special session, an emergency session, and realizing that all of the resources across the island that you as a body have to contend with to figure out how to put a master budget together. While it's a challenge at our level, I sure don't want your job. It's a tough one. It's not easy decisions. We got to a point where we could make a significant dent with the resources we had. So let's move on it. And that's what we've been doing. It's working. We're turning those around within a 24-hour period every time we submit.
Thank you, Senator Guåhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Guåhan, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a few statements, actually. When school closures were discussed, DOE, I think it's Mr. Yu, or Dr. Swanson, maybe the board as well, was discussed, it was stated that there would be savings. Yet here we are, we have fewer schools, more vacancies, 6,500 students fewer now, and somehow with a budget that has grown by 10% in the last 6 years, the cost doesn't drop proportionately. Let's compare 2018. DOE requested $324 million, and we're funded $245 million, a shortfall of $78 million. Yet you had 28,954 students to educate. Today, you're requesting $303 million, and the proposed budget is $266 million, a shortfall of $37 million. Now, you take your $15 million in lapses, plus the $14 million this legislature is clawing back from DOA, money that was taken from you, that's $29 million more in your pocket. Okay? $37 million shortfall minus $29 million. We will be restoring, leaves $8 million gap, okay? Mind you, I'm not counting the $16 million the good colleague from GIGO has secured for Sanchez. From a $78 million shortfall in 2018 to an $8 million shortfall today, serving 5,000 fewer students. You're still telling us the solution is to close 10 schools and lay off teachers? It doesn't quite add up. The leadership in 2018 had much bigger funding gap and made it work. You're sitting on $29 million we've appropriated for your use, and you haven't spent it. I met you more than halfway, I think, you know? From a $78 million shortfall down to $8 million, this is a time to reflect, adjust, and to do better. You know, I'm not a finance expert, and I'm not a lawyer, not a PhD, not a lifelong comedian, nor am I a propaganda expert. I'm a retired professional athlete. Train hard with severe, extreme discipline, disciplined diet. Made sure the good Lord is with me every day. It's a simple man. It's not rocket science. Now, you're all under oath. All of you are under oath. Can you commit right now, to get in a group chat, pick up the phone, whatever it takes to actually talk to each other before the next budget submission? Call everyone on this panel. Can that be a promise for everybody? Because there was an argument earlier, and because people didn't talk to each other. How can we get things done and solve things if you're not talking to each other? We come here tonight and we're arguing. That's not how we win. Let's start talking together. With that said, it's getting late. God bless each and every one of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Ranking Member Muñoz Barnes, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the time right now, so in the interest of time, I know that I do have a couple of amendments coming up on the next round, so I'm going to yield my time back. Thank you. But thank the members and the folks from DOE and, of course, OFP and ADALUP for still being here with us late this evening. A lot of concerns and issues have been brought up regarding the finances, the lapses, the what can be utilized or not. And though there's some concerns with me, I do know that I may be working with the Oversight Chair to see what we can do to provide for some flexibility, I guess. It's a tiring evening, sir. We've been here all day, so thank you. I yield my time back. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the panel for joining us, because you guys have done fine. Mr. Wade, on your concern for Southern High, when did you teach at Southern High on the sports side? Just curious.
You can consider it sports. As you know, they're Army veteran. Our cadets do a lot of, I was teaching ROTC starting in March 2022, and we tried to make use of that field, no matter how dilapidated it was. We did some of our cadet challenges physical fitness and stuff down there.
And because
Jungle warfare.
Yes, jungle warfare. Paul, Mr. Waite, how much money does the ROTC is generated from Southern in DOE? How much funds are there in ROTC?
How much money comes in for ROTC from Southern? We do receive 50% of the pay for each of the instructors comes from the service, Army. And by Guam law, that money is set aside for JROTC operations, and that's how we fund sending the cadets off island for their competitions.
Is there any funds left over? Other than sending them off island?
Typically, that money carries over each year. And yes, after each trip, depending on how many cadets go on a trip, there may be 15, 20,000 that's left over until it builds up for the next year's different events that the cadets travel to.
Okay. Now, to the facilities guys, Jimmy, do you know what the problem is with the football field, Jimmy? Do you know the problem? You know what the problem is for the football field?
Everything.
Hombre. The only reason I'm asking this, Jimmy, is because I was on the board when I asked that question in 2007, and they told me what the problem is. I want to know if you know what the problem is.
Everything, the lighting, the electrical, all the trees are in the middle of the field. There's a sinking hole right at the end of the football field.
Do you know the result? Why there's a sinking hole?
No, I think because of the...
Okay. Well, let me just a little bit of the history. When that school was built, they ran the sewer line in that area. They didn't fix it. It wasn't a Gov Guam issue. It was DOE's construction when the Gov Guam got involved in that, when they first built the school. It's no different like the swimming pool you have there. Did you guys ever get to fix that one so you can use it? Probably not. Because I've been there a couple times and the pool still looks the same. Empty, sometimes filled by just water and just trash. And you know, when I was on the board, I used to ask the question of the principal back then. Because I visited every school when I was on board for 6 years. I asked the question, why is your school so dirty down here in Southern High? And the principal back then, shouldn't have to mention name, but it was Mr. Dunn. And he said to me, it's because we don't have funds to paint the school. We walked around the school further, and I asked the question again, why is the school so dirty? I said, Mr. Chairman, it's because we don't have money to paint the school. I said, great. You got 2 water blasters, you got maintenance folks down here, and you haven't water blasted the building. If you clean it up, we'll probably find you money. Why? Because a lot of the business folks will donate funds to paint your school. And that's one of the things that's been happening every year, even up to date. I used to question that. Nothing against the personnel, okay? I used to ask the question, we always ask the people of Guam, can you come and help the school? And when I was on the board, I used to ask the question of the maintenance folks, because they were divided by region. That's something I created then. And all of a sudden it fell apart. Everybody was divided out so that schools can get entertained. What do you do for 9 months that you need the people of Guam to come out and cut your grass? To paint your schools and so forth. And you know what? I know you're asking for funds. And I mentioned earlier Bill 156. I don't know if any of you pulled it up to check it out. But what Bill 156 is about refinancing the 4 schools, the lease schools, going back to the bond market, and it can approximately bring you $56 million to DOE. Trying to find ways to get you guys money, okay? So that's the way the bill is written. Lester probably not going to agree to it, but I'm just hoping it can generate some funds. and I estimated 56. We'll find out what happens when it goes there. But with that,
Senator San Augustine?
yes, Jim,
There's two things I would like to touch on, if you don't mind.
go for it.
The first thing is you brought up the sewer line over at Southern High. Did you know that GDOE is in charge of 2 lift stations, sewer lift stations? And none of my guys are certified. We're getting hit by EPA about, you guys are supposed to maintain this, you're supposed to be trained. We try to turn it over, we try to talk to GWA to take it over, but there's certain things that we have to do to bring it up to par. That's why we asked for the generator down at Southern High. There's other valves that we need to change out. So there's a whole, I think it's a 10-point that we have to do in order for them to take it over. But since you brought up the sewage line, is there any way that you can just give it back to them?
That sounds like a good idea.
Yes.
We'll figure that out and ask GWA.
We appreciate it. And the other thing is GEF. I mean, I know it's premature. You're still talking about trying to refinance the schools. But currently, we're having big issues with those schools. I just want you to know, and I think everybody knows already, but if nobody knows, then let me tell you what's happening. The school is not funded correctly to maintain them. So every reinspection, GDOE has to come in and assist, or we have to do it on our own, with costs that has not been budgeted. So these are things that we're trying to do to help GEF, but if we are planning to do what you're asking, we need to rewrite the contract, or we need to figure out a better plan, or give them more. I don't know what it is, but we have issues with that school.
And you're correct. 17 years ago, it was a good contract. Okay? I'm only saying, Jim, it may not be working today, but then when it was first leased, it was a good program. That's how those schools were built. Throughout the years, things have changed. Nobody addressed those issues. It was never brought to this body. So you guys gotta work that.
The reason why we can is because...
So when the bill comes up, bring that up, and then that should be incorporated. Okay?
Senator, we did provide feedback to BBMR because they asked for feedback on that bill.
Okay.
And we did provide our feedback to BBMR. If you want, I could send you our copy that the super signed.
All right, thank you. And on that same note, we'll wait until the bill is heard, and then we'll see all the feedback, so we can see how far we can go with it. So we don't point fingers on what we're going to do when we haven't had the public hearing. Wait for the public hearing, and then we'll address it then. Because I know I'll get a report from BBMR, from Primo Lester, so I'm not worried about that. I get all the reports, and I just read it and figure out what we need to do, and we move on from there. But with that, got 24 seconds. It's almost time for us to all go home. Like I said, thank you all for joining us here. Feel free to come back tomorrow or Monday, if anything. Other than that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let's figure out a way how to get you money. Even if we need to request to roll over whatever you got today. Okay? Thank you.
Jesus Masi, Senator San Augustine, and we will be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Vice Speaker, you're recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard about reducing forces if you guys don't get the budget that you guys requested for. So I just kind of wanted to know, when was the last time you guys had laid off any employees? We'll just go from 2022 to 2025.
I don't know if there were layoffs. I do recall or have been told that under a previous DFAS that we went to a 4-day work week.
And
that
what
was
year? What
prior
year
to
was
my
that?
time. I don't know what year it was. Under a previous DFAS.
Okay, then we'll just go last year. Any layoffs? Any reducing hours?
The layoffs are the fact that we're not filling required positions.
Now, I'm just asking a specific question. Were there any layoffs or reduced hours?
Nobody's
in
lost their
2025?
job, no. Federally funded employees for ARP specifically, but outside of that, no.
2024?
That was the end of FY24.
Okay. 2025, 2024, and 2023. Any layoffs or reduced hours for any employees?
No, Senator.
Okay, so, and that being said, those 3 years, you had 37 million less in 2023, 40 million less in 2024, and 37 million less in 2025. And now this year, you're telling us that there's going to be a reduction in forces if you don't get the 40 million.
That is correct, Senator. You know, like I keep bringing us back to this spreadsheet.
I understand the spreadsheet, but the numbers that are given and the numbers that are taken don't add up with the numbers that you guys are saying. And so I'm just asking. And then
the first thing we're going to do, it's like we did this current fiscal year.
I understand. Let me finish my questioning. So with that being said, I'm still not figuring out how you guys are going to let people out. You know, I mean, it comes back to this. You know, we keep coming back here saying that the sky's falling. But, you know, maybe perhaps if the numbers come in better, you know, what the true accurate accounting is of what's going on. Have you guys ever done a forensic financial audit at GDOE?
We're being audited currently.
No, a forensic financial audit.
Not since I've been there. There is an audit.
Perhaps maybe that needs to be done. And you know, one of my colleagues had said, fully funded education. But since 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, not a single year was education fully funded. As a matter of fact, you went from it's just a difference of from 37 million to 168 million that you guys weren't funded, right? And then we talk about the cost of educating every child in Honolulu, in California, versus GDOE. Cost of living is different in every jurisdiction. So naturally, the cost of educating would be different. You said you guys needed individuals for procurement, right? Your buyers, your buyer one, your buyer two, have they taken the full procurement courses?
The buyer twos have, sir. That's part of the hiring criteria.
And the buyer ones?
The one buyer, or the two buyer twos that we have.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to hear. So, I mean, hopefully we'll come down to some type of agreement on how we can fund education. And trust me, I'm a product of public schools. Do I want to see the public schools fail? Absolutely not. None of us do. But we just need the accurate numbers and what's happening, what's going on, so we can get a better understanding of how we can help. You guys are all doing your best up there. I know you are. To be here at this hour for the past, since this morning, you guys wouldn't be here if you guys didn't care. But we just need to get to the bottom line so that we can say we're going to work with the education department and how we can do it. Because it doesn't look good when you ask for something, you ask for a certain budget, and then you get appropriated something less, but yet you still have lapses in the millions of dollars. It doesn't look good. And that's why I'm saying we just need to see how is it that we can come to some type of agreement in working with you guys. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. I know that it's getting late, and hopefully we'll be able to get this round off and work with you guys again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sijus Masi, Vice Speaker. Senator Tadigui, you recognize.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair. Well, it's me in between you getting your head on a pillow and sleeping. I think I'm the last person on here. So I'll try and make it as quick as possible, and then I think we're going to be let go. So I just wanted to ask a few questions before I give some comments, and that is on the ARP funding expenditures that you put out. So it's been encumbered, and it needs to be spent by February 2026. Is that correct?
March 2026, and
Okay, March.
There is some confusion out there that we received ARP money. We never receive it. The way it worked before is we received the invoices from the ARP vendors. We submitted that to DOE. DOE provided us the money. We paid the bill. Now, under the reimbursement process, we have to pay the bill first, provide US DOE with the invoice and the check, and then the money is reimbursed to us.
Okay, so that being said, you're going to have money up front to get those reimbursement. And how
correct.
much money do you have in a pot that you use for reimbursement?
As I've been saying all evening, we've found that we can spend about 11 million at a time for each cycle, and each cycle currently is taking about 2 weeks.
And can you verify again, Jordan, I think how much is the, how much in lapses under, I'm hearing everybody saying different lapses, but I just want to hear one more time from you. How much lapses is DOE sitting on that can be used to cover some of these expenses? Now, I say that carefully, to be used to cover some of these expenses that you just gave us.
So the question is, what will be authorized to carry forward into 26? Anything that's authorized to carry forward into 26, that obviously, this budget, whatever is passed, does not fund, would then be used to backfill in all of that. If we're saying, look, 266 means we're tracking a potential cut of 21 million, then, ideally, we would like to try and keep those people employed or keep those hours the same, or not have to worry too hard about full-on the hardest maximization we can do, because we don't want to increase class sizes too far. Like we said, we have a limit that we need to maintain. These other contracts that are looking at cuts, we're going to want to make sure those are funded, because these are all vital services.
Okay, well, like I said again, how much is that lapse fund? I guess we're going to have to talk about what did you accumulate in FY20 when we were going into FY25?
See, so going in from 24 into 25,
Yes.
we were looking at something in the range of 11 million.
Okay, so it's 11, not 40 million or 30 or anything, it's 11.
I believe they're looking at the total cumulative from prior years all the way through until
Okay.
this coming
I
into
see.
the year. So they're adding up all of the lapses from the past couple years on top of what we're expecting in 25 lapse, which cumulatively would be somewhere around, it's a large number. And DOE is not trying to hide any of that. We acknowledge that we are struggling. We are really, really failing to spend our money, and this is a big issue. And I want to clarify just one thing that I really, really have to say, because we're getting back messages about how, GDOE is saying things and it's the board's fault, and the board is deciding that GDOE can't spend the money. I used to be one of those employees at the department that, the board policy is so frustrating, and they're saying that we can't hire what we need. The reality is the board is put into a position where they have no choice. They're contractually obligated, and it's the government of Guam as a whole is contractually obligated to fulfill the requirements set forth in the CBA. The fact that they're saying, well, we're not going to open the department and ourselves as the board to suits, that's completely understandable. That's why what we're saying is, the full amount, this full funding would relieve the board from that restriction. They would not have to then go say, GDOE, look, I know that you have administrative challenges, but this is going to add on to it if we allow you to just say we're not going to fill CBA positions, which we don't want to, because again, like we said, we have to prioritize educational services, which means the last place we're going to cut anything is going to be teachers, schools, all of these supports that directly work with our students.
Jordan, how much money did you put aside for maintenance for the FY26, your FY26 budget?
For FY26, I mean, looking at this, for personnel, of course, it's part of that 236, but generally their personnel costs from salaries to benefits run somewhere in the range of I want to say around 3 point some million, around that area. Of course, it may slightly,
what?
3.4 or somewhere 3 or 4 million.
Only for maintenance?
It's actually more than that, ma'am. Because of the increases that we were able to get from the supplemental last year.
Okay.
And the legislature was aware that we were going to hire more maintenance personnel to accomplish the maintenance mission. It's about 6.6 million for the salaries of those.
Just for the salaries and benefits.
93 personnel.
Just salaries and benefits for maintenance. Okay, so my question next is then, if you're doing just for salary, if you get this budget that's already proposed in this substituted budget, which is lower than what you requested for, now tell me how much money will you take of that budget and put in maintenance?
Well, the last thing, of course, we want to do is
lay off people because you don't have enough money to pay for the salaries, right?
So in terms of the contracts, I did not touch maintenance contracts, like the school grounds maintenance or the custodial or the trash disposal, because again, these are basic. We're gonna let the trash build up at the school, of course not, right? But in terms of the impact on personnel to F&M, again. Like I said, if we can achieve it by maximization, maybe we won't have to. Okay. But at the amount 21 million, that is a tall order, and I worry that we might end up having to say, whether we go into a LIFO or we do an across the board, we'll say, look, every division, every school, look at your staffing pattern. Do we do a percentage cut of staffing?
I see.
That's only
so you would have to cut, right, Jordan? You would have to cut in that department. Because right now, if you get this budget that's proposed in front of us, right, it's not what you requested for. So how much of that will go, how much would you carve out for maintenance? Just give me a figure amount, that's all.
At this point, it's undeterminable because there's no way for us to know how much exactly. We need to maximize as much as possible first, to ensure that we're protecting our employees and our obligations to the contract.
Okay. Was Head Start also defunded?
At this point, no.
Well, Head Start is funded separately under a different grant.
Right.
But there are local expenditures that are required as matching.
Okay, and did you meet that matching?
Yes.
My understanding is, yes, we have hired, or we are currently in the recruitment process for all the matching positions.
Wade, any issues on the Head Start scenario from there? I mean, because I know you're always at these meetings and discussing funds. And Head Start was one of those things you spoke about one time when we had.
I know the superintendent has been in touch with our Head Start director, and there was some talk at one point of it being cut out of the federal grant, but I haven't kept up with that, so he may be better.
So we don't know yet if you've been cut from that Head Start, from the federal cuts?
No, for this fiscal year,
we do know. No, we have not been cut.
Okay. FY26 has not been cut.
Head Start at this point is fully funded. They've reorganized their whole structure in the United States. So Region 9 is gone, and we have we're managed out of Denver now.
Okay. So Wade, how much funding have you set aside for capital improvements?
In this budget, ma'am?
Yeah.
Basically the 350,000 that we get.
That's it?
Yeah. Because we don't.
Almost a joke. Is that why you're laughing? Because it is. It's almost a joke.
One moment, Senator. If we spend it on supplies and equipment, then it could be less than the 350.
Which you'll probably have to do. Okay. But, everyone has to make some cuts somewhere, but it's still, it's kind of difficult when it comes to education to do something like that. The next question I have is, you mentioned certain contracts you've been delayed either because of issues with procurement or other people not finding the right contractor or something. Are you using any of the funding to pay for big renovation contracts that are being delayed?
We're using some of that money, which is part of the lapse, to pay down our ARP bills, which...
That's what I was wondering about the ARP, yeah.
Right.
Because you have to have funding in order to get reimbursed, right? That's kind of
We have to pay it first, and that includes the refurbishment contracts.
Thank you so much. And I think that's, it's just the last of my comments, my questions. And, Mr. Swanson, Dr. Swanson, I was one of those who sat and months, every month to have a meeting on the update of what's going on with GDOE for the last 2 years. And was sitting with the oversight chair, the former oversight chair of education. And I made it and every time I've seen you go there, there's not, and it was late at night sometimes, right? We would sit there and starving, our stomachs growling, wanting to go, but you never once complained. Never once did you complain that you had to come there at night or stay longer or even look agitated that you had to be there. Thank you for that, because I hit you with a lot of hard questions. You know that. I hope you're going to miss me.
I'll just say that sometimes they got under my skin a little, but I know how to play poker.
You got a good team up there. It's the next generation that I'm seeing up there. And, Jordan, you've been coming up with the numbers, trying to, off the top of your head sometimes, it's good. You've got a great maintenance team over here. That's that next generation that we're hoping that comes and takes over. We've got a lot of people retiring out of DOE. So a lot of your vacancies are probably going to increase because of the retirement. The baby boomers are leaving. So this is going to be another issue that you're going to come into play. And maybe it's time to start looking into AI technology and how we can utilize that to lessen the cost and be more efficient.
Thank you, Senator.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. And Dr. Swanson, thank you so much for putting up with me. Thank you.
Impeccable timing. We've hit the 10 o'clock hour, which is our witching hour. Colleagues, we have finished the second round. We will do amendments tomorrow. We will be starting session at 9 a.m. Committee of the Whole is adjourned for tonight.